allegiance, and I'll see if I can get the flag where.
You can't see with the background, Gail, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Oh, all right. Well, there's a flag here.
I'm standing.
All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Of America,
and to the
To the
republic
republic
which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Roll call, Mike?
All right, Councilman Blevins,
Here.
Councilman Schlack,
Present.
Councilman Valerius,
Present.
Councilwoman Syke,
here.
Councilman Lloyd,
Here.
Pro Tem Lally,
Yes, sir.
and Mayor McLeod.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Okay, we have a section here for comments. I assume that's public comments, Mike?
Yeah, it just states in our charter that every meeting shall have a spot for the public.
Right, right. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. We have anybody out there? Yes.
Through the chair, if I may, Don Graham, who's in the audience, does have a question. The question he has is, will there be a transmitting tower on site? Will the city of Melville have any use or activity within the property? That's from Don Graham in the audience.
Okay.
Speaking for the group here, I don't believe we'll have a transmitting tower on the site at this point in time. I don't think there's any plan for that. Well, let me mute Dave real fast. You already muted.
Hi, Bob.
Evening, everybody.
So the first part of the question would be, is there a transmitting tower on site? And the plan at this point does not include a transmitting tower. And will City of Melville have any use or activity within the property? I'm going to look for Tom there. Tom, we had talked about possibility of letting sharing the salt facility with them, but I'm not too sure where we're at on that. It may be still a little too early to just have that, but I think we do have capacity in the salt dome space if we decide to work with Melville on that issue. They, I believe they probably have the same type of condition in their salt dome as we have on our current salt dome, in pretty bad shape.
Okay, are there any other public comments, questions?
Mr. Cisco has one, it looks like.
Not seeing any.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Cisco, how are you today?
Mr. Kibbe, good to see you got a haircut today.
I almost got one today.
So is this the citizens' comments? Am I in the right place or the wrong?
Yes,
place?
you are.
So I'm in both places at the same time, the right place and the wrong place?
Seems to be.
It's public comment time, correct.
Okay, so just a little short thing. Nice to see everybody. Not everybody shows up on the screen, by the way. I don't see my friend Mayor Pro Tem Lally anywhere on the screen. I know I heard him.
I'm here.
Well, you have to swipe it to the left.
We're expanding.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I'll go back to the right now.
Okay.
So, listen, about the facility that we want to build, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, a lot of you were in the audience the last time that I had talked about this as a council person, and that I had objections to it. And my objection still to this day is, as we're in the middle of a growing financial crisis, if it's true, nobody can deny it. It's gonna, I can't predict what's gonna happen or not. But how do we face the citizens? How do we face our residents in Allen Park and tell them that we're gonna spend $3 million plus on a facility when our income for the city of Allen Park is going to go down. And there's no doubt about that. The shared state income will be down, if not non-existent. I don't know. Someone's going to have to bail us out. And that's every city and every state. That's just going to have to happen. One thing I do agree with is money is cheap to borrow right now. Very cheap. But by summertime comes around, everything I've read or anything, that we're going to go to negative interest rates, Mr. Katie. And Mr. Katie knows, I did speak to him once about those. But I think you guys need, how important is it to build this building right now? How are we going to go to the citizens and ask for a renewal on police and fire when we're spending $3 or $4 million on a building that is needed, but I don't believe it's needed right now. So you understand where I'm coming from on this. I agreed on buying the property. It was a good buy, and but we seem to be rushing into this in a way. Okay. Now, when we last talked about this in November, financial crisis or the wasn't anything near what it is now. The circumstances have changed since November, but my mind hasn't changed. Is it needed? How badly is it needed? And that's my concern. So when you all you elected officials, you face your neighbors, you have to go to them and tell them we need increases, or we might have to raise taxes for this or that because we are out of money. How do we justify this? Well, we could get by for a little while longer and just see how it works out. I don't disagree with building the place. I don't disagree with buying it. I don't disagree with borrowing the money, but I don't think now is the proper time. It's just not. And that's basically what I have to say. I think everybody's doing a great job. I just want to say that. Our administrator, our finance, Mr. Sabak's there. I see him. So from a distance, I haven't been out of the house in 2 months. So I have a nice view from my window, though. But I'm just hoping that we can get through this, and my feelings and my opinion are my own, not anybody else's. But I do look at this from a common sense perspective. Yes, we need it. Do we need it now? Do we need to go out and spend $3 or $4 million, whatever the final price tag is going to be? I mean, really, if you really think about it, we spent how much is the property? $550? Is that what it was? $5. So we spent $5 on the property. You've approved plans for an architect at how much? To what?
297 total.
Okay, so let's just say 300,000. So we spent $800,000 already. And everything else is going to be an add-on. So that's all. I could talk forever, and I'm not going to do that because my 4 minutes is probably up. But I haven't talked to a lot of people lately, so I'm having a lot of fun right now.
Well, we'll send somebody over to visit you so you can talk more.
No, thank you. Not unless they've been tested. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me time. And I really enjoy this Zoom thing. This is, I've been wanting to do it, but I didn't want to interject, for being an old council person just recently. I didn't want to interject myself into anything and for you guys to get your feet wet, get your grounding, understand how government works. And one thing, how government works, once something is started, it keeps getting pushed to the end. And it's only up to you elected officials that can stop these things and start them. And that's the way it works. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Is there any other public comments?
Yeah, I just answered, Mr. Graham had another question. He was asking about an impound lot, and that is planned for a future phase. At this point, I don't believe police has enough funding to make it all work, so we have some alternative plans that we'll have to put into motion if that property is sold before we have the future plan set at the new site. Do you want to answer?
I can address former Councilman Cisco's concerns. As he remembers, when he was on council, we decided to go with the bond resolution and then leave it up to this council to borrow the money. One of the reasons we decided to go forward was the fact that every time we got an estimate, it was slipping away from us. The price kept escalating. The price of steel was going up. The amount of labor prices were going up. And we're seeing even in this downturn in the economy, the prices haven't really come down. The second part is we borrowed the $4 million, which is over 50% of the cost of this project. The rest of it we're doing within our own means in the budget. I've been constantly on the phone myself or Amanda Wirtz with the state looking at what's going on. Yes, we're going to receive some fewer revenues from the state, but there are things that we're going to absorb into our budget and we feel we can handle. The Act 51 funds aren't going into that. That affects our roads, and that's a whole nother issue. Those are the two big areas where we'll be losing money, is in state share revenue and in Act 51. This year's budget will probably be down about $200,000 in state share revenue and about $96,000 in Act 51 funds, which, as I said before, will affect our roads. So, we're working within our means to build this, and the process from the beginning, if council remembers or anybody out there in TV land, was we're going to do this within our means. We don't plan to get it all done in 1 year, and it's all being done in phases so that it's affordable and we can stay within our means to get this done.
Thank you, Bob. I just like to interject one more thing before we move on to the main part of the agenda, and that is the fact that this has been reviewed and discussed. A lot of questions asked, and some very good ones, particularly by the newer council members. We've got the money that's committed. As Bob pointed out, we're going to stay within our means. We've got deteriorating facilities. We've got a salt dome that will not last through this winter, and that needs to be replaced. And I believe that's in phase one. We've got equipment that's highly high-tech now that should not be sitting out in the elements, that needs to be protected. And again, I think reinforcing the fact that we're going to do this without asking for any funding from our residents, the fact that we have been assured and shown the figures that we can get through this no matter what. I don't think it makes a good sense to delay this project. There's just too many positives. And one of the reasons I think that the city found itself in the condition it was at one point is because of a malaise where nothing was done, where there was money available, but it sat there and we waited until things had deteriorated past the point of no return. And then it was even more costly. And that's just my comments on it. Anybody else wants to voice a comment, please address the chair.
Madam Mayor, if I could be acknowledged.
Mr. Lloyd, yes.
So I actually have a question for Mr. Murray. In the follow-up is, Mr. Murray. So how much in a dollar value of vehicles do we have right now that are sitting outside that are not be able to be housed by our current DPW building?
Well,
Do you have a rough idea?
You have a $300,000 tree truck we purchased 4 years ago, and we currently have a sewer truck that is valued at $410,000 that we do house at the mechanics garage during the winter time so it doesn't freeze the pumps, but they have to move it out obviously to work on vehicles at times. So right there you have almost $1 million, about $750,000 just in 2 vehicles that are sitting outside.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, can I say,
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with the mayor. You know, this is overdue. Yes, we're gonna spend some money. Yes, it's a lot of money. But you know what? If you keep buying equipment that costs more than we can afford, we have to protect them. If we don't protect them, shame on us, because then it's going to fail. Then you got to buy another one, or you got to repair that one. So this has got to be done, guys. Whatever it takes, whatever we have to do, it's got to be done. Are you, any of you guys been to the facilities where this equipment is I'm asking, has anybody been there?
I believe some,
Let me tell
some has, but
you,
we want to get,
you gotta go ahead and look at it, because it's ridiculous, expensive equipment, and I'm being serious. We gotta take care of it. If not, don't buy expensive equipment. What about it?
When we went on vacation one time, we went to the cat dealer, and these pieces of equipment are getting more and more technical, more and more bells and whistles, and it's amazing to sit in these pieces of machinery. And we're not going to go and buy, even in the future, they're going to get more and more with more and more electrical parts and more computers on them, and things that need to be put into a garage and safely stored and protected. So, and we want to do it, if we can do it, we are being told that we have the money to do this. We should do it now, because as we all know, things are going to increase in value, and the project will just cost more. So, while I disagree on some of the details, I don't disagree with the thought process in that, yes, we need to finish what the other council started and put this building in, because we have value, and it's our duty to protect the investment that our citizens have made in this, and we need to protect it to the best of our ability. And you know, I just think it's a good move, and so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? I'm sorry, Mark, were there any other public comments out there?
Can't hear you, Mark.
Muted.
He'll come back on.
No, Mayor, that's everything that we saw out there. I think we got them all answered.
Okay, then we'll end the public comments and we'll get on to the main portion of the agenda. The new DPS facility on our drive. Who's going to take the lead on this?
So I'll take the lead. We're here. I'm here with Bob and Dave. Dave's using his camera and his high-tech stand. I don't want to show you. It's so high-tech. He's going to be probably putting a patent on this thing in a minute. Before the meeting's over, I'll show you though. Real quick, just want to take a quick introduction. We do have Sohail back with us. As everybody knows, Sohail is a city engineer. We've been with us numerous other times. And two newcomers that I think a few of you may know and some may not, and that is Joe Vig from JS Vig and also Brett Levko from JS Vig. We've worked well with Joe in the past on the project building we're sitting in tonight, and as well as Brett was also involved in that project. So just want to give you an introduction to those two gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark.
And I think there was some information in the packet on Joe Vig's company, JS Vig, as well. Kind of where we're at today, we're ready to kind of to move forward in the timeline because of the fact we've got to get the salt dome in before August 15th. I probably would say more like August 1st, because time with the curing of the concrete and before we can allow the trucks to get on there. So we're looking tonight for a notice to proceed for GV Cement. And then the second request that we'll be looking for is a construction management contract with Joe Vig, JS Vig and Construction, and that would be to handle the entire project of there. We've been meeting a couple times with the subcommittee and of the Municipal Complex Committee, and I've gone over a number of the drawings, plans. They were able to talk with Joe, I think, last week as well. And then internally, we've had numerous meetings. I think we've vetted this pretty well amongst ourselves, and I don't want to say we've argued amongst ourselves, but we've had some spirited conversations amongst ourselves. And I think that's what's important sometimes is make sure, you know, Tom's been, it should be Tom's facility, but I think Tom, we kind of challenge him once in a while, and he'll come back and challenge us to make sure, is this going to be what's best for the facility, for the residents of Allen Park and the department, and so forth. So I'm going to yield over to.
Well, you might want to explain, first off, we don't have a hard number from GV Cement because they actually give us an estimate off of the original footprint, which was larger. And that's why that number is not yet in concrete, set in stone, but it's close. We vetted it, JS Big has vetted it, but we don't have the bottom line exact price on the site work, but that will be an easy number to get to once we have the quantities because we have all the unit pricing. Because that we've made some changes and put some additional constraints on the CE Range Company, those drawings aren't 100% complete, although they are 90% complete. So we wish we would have had a concrete number on the civil work or site work, but we think we are real close in that regard.
And I believe we may have some updates from Joe and from Brett on those numbers as we go forth. And no pun intended with Dave's concrete numbers as we're talking about concrete work. So we're looking to get that process started and basically get move this project off the peg we're at now and get moving so we get going here. And I think the numbers, as Bob was talking about, we're seeing an increase in cost already. Again, we talked about that a couple months ago. We were seeing an increase in cost. It's continuing on. We were hoping to see maybe some reductions because of the economy going down. That has not necessarily been the case. So waiting is probably not in our best interest either from that. Ray, and as I talked to Councilwoman Syke this morning, I kind of, you know, this project is ever evolving. I mentioned in my email, you know, we're doing a lot of things simultaneously as we're seeking approvals from the state and still doing some design work. We have the footprint for the building that is set. We have a pretty good layout of where the facilities would be laid out on the property. So we're set with that enough that we can go ahead and start on the civil work, which would be the roadway, the sewers, I'm going to say, is it a detention pond or a retention pond? I can never figure out which is which. And then also start, what is it?
It's detention. It doesn't.
Detention.
It has an outlet.
Okay, so the detention pond and then the water main as well. And so I'm going to stop talking. I think I'm going to yield over to maybe Joe Vig, if you want to step in now, if you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, Mark, that would be great. To the mayor and council, thank you for inviting us to attend the meeting. And Mark, again, thanks for the introduction. Brett Loveco and I have been working on the project actually probably for 2 or 3 years now. So we understand the objectives. You know, we're very familiar with the existing facilities. We've been to both facilities a number of times, and of course we've sat down with Tom as well over the last few years. So we have a pretty clear understanding, and also, you know, from Bob's point of view, we understand the financial constraints. We budgeted over the last, you know, several years a lot of different models, even before Allen Park purchased the property from the college, to see, you know, how cost effectively we could do the project and how we could perhaps phase it in over time. In the last really 3 weeks, we've spent an extensive amount of time on the project. Even as recent as today, we have updated site pricing. So we're continually updating our budget, and we can share that with you tonight at a high level if you'd like. We can also talk about the project schedule. There's a couple different things to consider. With regard to the project schedule and timing, there's the immediate need, obviously, to get in the roads and utilities and infrastructure to try to get the salt dome up and running before winter. But also, and we talked about this in our prior Zoom meeting as well. Tom had brought this up. There's kind of a critical need, particularly on the pre-engineered metal building, to get that up and enclosed to avoid winter construction cost adding to the construction budget, but also to get it up and enclosed and in service so that we can hand it over to DPS as soon as possible. So really the objective, and you'll see this, Brett, Mark, can you hand the reins over to the share screen over to Brett so that he could show some of these documents? And I'll answer as many questions as you guys have, but I'll try to give you just a high level overview to start with. Brett, why don't we start with the schedule?
Can everybody see my screen now?
So we can see your screen, but we can't see the document. It just says it started. There we go.
Oh, there it is.
And Brett, can you, for those of us that can't see as well as your 35-year-old eyes, can you blow that up a little bit? So if you look at this document and pull it, there we go. If we could see the task, what you'll really identify is on the site work component, the objective is to start the project as soon as possible, and really to try to prepare the building pad and to try to get the roads and infrastructure in all before winter, both to put the property in service and to avoid winter construction costs. If you scroll down to the building itself, the building really has two major components. There's a pre-engineered shop and storage component, and then there's the attached conventionally framed office component. And right now, as we speak, we are out to bid to various pre-engineered building contractors because we need to select a building system so that the architect can get all the structural reactions and complete their architectural drawings. So we're receiving those bids this week, and if the project is approved, we would award that contract on a preliminary basis. So we'll bring that tabulation back to council for approval. We will award that, and then that would put us in a position where we can do those shop drawings, complete the design of the building, fabricate all of that structural steel, and enclose that building prior to winter to put the building in service. And if you follow this through, including the office component, the intent is to have the entire project completed by next year, the spring of 2021. But that's a little misleading because the real goal is to get the roads, infrastructure, and the shop component up and in service by the end of the year. And any questions on the schedule? And so with that, Brett, if you go back to the schedule of values, the current budget. Brett, even prior to pulling the budget up, can you show Sohio's latest site plan, the one that kind of color codes the plan, just to show folks what we're talking about? Because the site plan has evolved 2 or 3 times in the last month.
Yeah, I can show that. I just need a minute to pull it up.
let's stay on this one for now then.
Okay.
So as we've worked through the project, we've been working very closely with Dave Boomer, and Dave's had us break the project down into a lot of different component costs. So what you'll see is in the first column, it's the shell building budget. Then there's a breakout of the cost for the interior office finish. The third column is all of the site work for both the building pad as well as the roads, the infrastructure, the site lighting, landscaping, etc. And the fourth column is the total project budget. So Brett, let's start at the bottom. If you go to the bottom of this spreadsheet, what you'll see when you look at Bob's numbers, because we're feeding the data to Bob so that he can update his projections on how to pay for the project. What you'll see is we're currently at a $7.5 million project cost. That's the total project cost in the total budget column. And we continue to study. If you look below the line, you'll see that we are continually evaluating work that can either be eliminated or potentially deferred without compromising the functionality of the building or the long-term building solution. So we have, if everybody remembers, we started with kind of a rectangular box, very cost-efficient box, but we also realized that the limitation of what we were considering, and that it wasn't going to be what we call a 50-year building for Allen Park. So once SIDOC was hired and SIDOC began working with SOUTHFIELD, the project really evolved to a complete solution in terms of the storage, the maintenance component, as well as all of the office needs for the project, so that you wouldn't need to continually come back and add additional programs to the building. And so that $7.5 million number, that represents the complete construction project cost. The only thing that's not included in that would be any of the equipment that we're moving over from existing facilities, or any new equipment or IT that we're putting in the building. So the kind of owner provided cost. But at a high level, that's where we're at. The site itself, that has changed, as we said, 2 or 3 times. So this budget, SOUTHFIELD has put estimates together on the site. JS Vig has put estimates together on the site. And then we've been working with Vince from GV on a weekly basis to get his estimates. And what we've been doing with Vince's pricing is we've been verifying the quantities, and we've also been taking those quantities that we come up with and using Vince's negotiated unit pricing to make sure that the pricing that he's giving us is accurate, basically. So this is kind of a real-time update of where we're at on the project cost. Now, in terms of what you can expect going forward, the next thing that we will bring to you is, once SOUTHFIELD's plan is 100% complete, we will have a 100% update on the site project cost. I don't think we're that far away from that. Within a week, really by the end of this week, we're going to have a tabulation of the bids for the pre-engineered metal building, which will include the steel frame, it will include the roofing system, and it will also include the metal siding on the walls as well. So that's kind of the complete envelope of the shop component. You'll have that by the end of the week. I talked to the project architect, SIDOC, just before this meeting, and SIDOC told me that they will have, for the office component, they'll have all the structural drawings to us by the end of next week. So that would be the structural steel, that will be the masonry, and that will be the foundation systems, so that we can put those out as a package. And then 2 weeks after that, they'll have the remainder of the architectural drawings. So SIDOC's been working pretty aggressively, given that they're working largely from home. They've been working on about a 4 to 6 week time frame to prepare all of the drawings for the project and for the building as it's currently designed with the updated site plan. Are there any questions at all with how we arrived at these numbers?
So if you can, if there's no questions, maybe take a second just to explain exactly what a construction manager does, and that we're not awarding the whole project JSVIG, that you're actually going to be putting items out to bid, and they'll actually be working for the city of Allen Park, or under contract with the city of Allen Park.
Dave, that makes a lot of sense. So we've been negotiating with Mark and Bob and Dave on this construction management agreement. To this point, we haven't incurred any cost on our end. We've really just been assisting with the preparation of these different budgets over the last 2 or 3 years. But the proposal that we had submitted to Dave was for a 4.5% construction management fee. Our fee on the police station and City Hall was 5.5%. And then we also established not to exceed staffing cost. And so you can see Brett has that document open in front of us for a project manager, project engineer, and project supervisor. This would function the same way that we did City Hall and the police station, where, you know, we would bill against those staffing amounts on a monthly basis, and then those would be approved by Dave and the rest of the team. So Brett, if you go back to the spreadsheet. You'll see there's the 4.5% construction management fee, and then the staffing costs are shown above. Everything else in the spreadsheet would be on an open book basis, as it was before, where we bring you the competitive subcontractor bids with a recommendation for award, and then council. The mayor and council would have the opportunity to ask any questions and approve those bid packages. So really, if you think of this project in terms of 4 bid packages, there's the site bid package, which is primarily with GV. There's the pre-engineered metal building bid package, which you'll have by the end of this week, will be sent out to council for review. And then there's 2 future bid packages. There's the structural bid package, which is also, there's a number of long lead items in terms of procurement in that package. And then the final bid package will be the architectural drawings and mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And all the line items above. So Brett, if you could scroll up, please. All of these line items will be brought back to you in the form of tabulated bids. So you would have, you know, 3 or 4 pre-engineered metal building prices, 3 or 4 masonry prices, 3 or 4 concrete prices, and so on and so forth, just like we did on the last project.
Joe, let me jump in real quick on that. So Mayor McLeod would remember this, and anybody else, probably Charles, because I know he was probably in the audience as well. When we were doing City Hall, we came in, there was one meeting, and I think we awarded 32 or 35 contracts that one night.
Right, and I distinctly remember seeing a binder filled with the bids that they had that probably, without exaggeration, was at least a foot tall. So it was, I remember that, you coming to the podium, and it had to be at least a foot tall. And it was just jammed with the various bids
That's right, Mayor. And we would do the same thing this time. We would give you all the backup documentation, but instead of giving you just the raw data, we'll organize it and tabulate it. And we also, we really committed to an effort the last go around to pay special attention to, you know, Allen Park resident businesses downriver contractors and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of outreach on that end. And I think, you know, from the perspective of the you know, community and the trade community, that was very appreciated. And even really, and you know, Dave or Mark or Bob, you guys were at the weekly construction meetings. There was a pretty good chemistry with those subcontractors, where, you know, with our team, a lot of them, I felt went kind of above and beyond the call of duty, because there was good team chemistry. Douglas Electric and, you know, the mechanical contractor and so on and so forth.
Now, the only change we might have this time around is, I think, unfortunately, you may not be working with Dave as much directly. You have to deal with Bob, as I think the role that Bob would be assuming would be the owner's representative in dealing with the project site, everything on the site.
Through the chair, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I just had a quick question for you, Joe, and then I think this next one goes to Mark, and it's just something we discussed about a municipal complex. So it's my understanding for all of these, for some of these things, JS Big will be bidding for the work itself. Is that correct?
That's right. Everything this is a really good question. Everything above the general requirements line item would be competitively bid, and those bids would be tabulated. And then everything below, from the start of general requirements down, those items are really not to exceed buckets for any site cost that we would incur in order kind of for the means and methods of construction. But we have to bring invoices to Bob to support that. So for example, if we're billing for a dumpster, we're providing an invoice for the dumpster that was rented for that month.
Awesome. So no matter what, when you bring the bids to us, we're going to see all the bids for the project, and you'll make a recommendation of what you think is best for that particular line item, but we will have access to all of the bids that have been made for that.
You would, and you know, as the mayor had indicated, so we'll put a complete binder together for the project, and then we will make multiple copies of that. So the entire council will get the executive summaries, but like last time, Dave and Bob and Mark got all the backup documentation as well, both at the bid phase and then with the monthly billings. So when we do the monthly billings and we provide the supporting invoices and so forth, you've got more or less a file that documents all these costs.
Awesome. And another one, Mark, and this is something we talked about in municipal complex, but just for the benefit of the rest of council and for any citizens that might be watching, construction management does not apply to the normal bid process because that's professional services. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So this, and that's just, we've obviously have a very good relationship with JS Vig, and it's more of a comfort thing. Is that my understanding?
I would consider Joe to be a partner of ours. JS Vig was heavily, obviously we talked, they were involved in this project. Joe himself was involved in this project, and as well as Brett. Previous projects, they were also involved in the court, which I think was in the mid-90s. And then we also found evidence that they were involved in the fire station back in I put down 1969 because I couldn't see the date on there, but I believe it was 1969 on the current fire station. So in a number of projects throughout the downriver, as I know, if you went through his presentations in the council packet that I emailed, a lot of the facilities that you're scrolling past, you'll recognize as something, okay, that's familiar. And JSV has usually been involved in those high profile projects. Some of the more high profile that I know he's involved with now, close to my heart, is the University of Michigan football program, but we'll skip past that portion. Joe, I said before, Joe's a partner. As you know, you've probably heard me use that term on a couple of our vendors. You know, we have SoHio, we have Joe. these are people that are partners with us and are become vested and invested in the projects themselves, as the department heads have, or the staff and the mayor and council have. I want to go back to, in the weekly meetings we attended, Joe Cuvier would also attend. So we had legal there to make sure, was there any concerns? And Joe would raise some questions on occasion to make sure we were going through the proper channels and make sure everything was done on the out front and up front, so the public would not be concerned and have a reason to come back and question anything.
Madam Mayor, can I say a question?
Yes, Mr. Lally.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question to Joe and Mark. I heard you said that you're gonna get bids for all different jobs. Joe, is that correct?
That's correct.
I was wondering if you had the community contractors or in a community to be involved in it, to get their bids to you, see if they could do the job too at the same time as everybody else.
Yeah, that's
open to the
that's
community?
a really good question, because we went on the last project, we did a lot of outreach to make sure that if there was somebody in the community that was capable of doing the work, we encouraged them to bid the project and engage them. And for the most part, we had a very, very high level of participation, with Allen Park and with Downriver contractors, and we expect the same.
Well, that's what I expect you guys to do, because there's a lot of good contractors in Allen Park and surrounding communities. Thank you.
I think that was one of the main features when they bid out for City Hall and the fire department. There was an emphasis on that, and I think that's why they work so well with the contractors within the community.
I feel like Kilroy here. I got to scoot my head in a little bit more. I can only see the top of my head. On the last project, I believe we used Bella Steel, who was a local company here on Roosevelt.
Yep.
And Claudio, although DeClaudio is not a Allen Park resident anymore, I think the family has been in Allen Park many, many years in the past.
And also, I believe, we had a couple different concrete contractors, but Pomponios, they grew up in Allen Park. They came in, they did some work on the project. Douglas Electric, our heating and cooling contractor, was also a downriver contractor. I would say we were probably at about 50 or 60%, Mark.
Yeah, a lot of employees too for those contractors or subcontractors were residents. I know when we were going, I'd post pictures up on the Facebook page, and I'd get their friends and family all tagging them as they were there, and I'd go back and kind of check to see where they were from, and they were from Allen Park. So it was really nice to see them, and they were able to take some pride in this building because of being a resident here as well. So I think that's a really key factor with working with Joe's group, that he does look out for the local business, to a certain scale, because some of this may be a little bit bigger than the some of the local guys we have, but they may have some other connections into the program as well.
And even the architect on this project, it's the SIDOC firm, but the division within, they're a firm with, I think they have 4 or 5 offices now, but they're the division of SIDOC that we're dealing with used to be called Yopton Wilkie, and then Wilkie Zanley. And we actually have done a number of projects. I mean, we've probably done, as a company, several hundred projects with Yopton Wilkie and Wilkie Zanley in the Downriver area, but many in Allen Park specifically. And they are the architect on this project, working with Sohail and his team they're doing the civil engineering. And if you go, hey, Brett, can you show some of the sample projects that are comparable to what we're building from that proposal? Because some of those projects are also partnerships with the design architect, between J.S. Fig and the design architect that you're working with. So they have a long history in the community, and they have an office in Wyandotte as well. Brett could show you the under relevant experience. Right. So if you look at this project, and these are some different. Well, there's the one project Mark was referring to in Ann Arbor, the football performance center. The other projects are downriver projects, that have a major pre-engineered building frame. And we wanted to kind of give you a wide array of examples of what can be done with these frames. So like the Huron Valley Steel building, that's a pre-engineered building with a conventional office attached to it. Kind of, now that building's over 25 years old. Crest Industries, same thing, slightly different design, pre-engineered building with because a lot of people think of a pre-engineered building as a pole barn, but that's not really what we're building here. It's a little bit misleading. The Romulus Athletic Center, if anybody's been out to the Romulus Athletic Center, that's maybe an extreme example, like the Football Performance Center, where it's a pre-engineered metal building and you wouldn't even realize it's a pre-engineered building. So the examples here point to the fact that we're not so much building a pole barn, we're building really what I would call a 50-year solution in this pre-engineered shop and warehouse with a office component that is attached that kind of, architecturally ties to City Hall and the other, city-owned properties.
Through the chair, I have a question.
Yes, Pam.
We haven't seen your general services contract, and not knowing what one looks like with the city, is there a not to exceed component to the general services contract?
Yeah, that's a good point. Brett, can you go back to the spreadsheet? So we would, the way this would be managed is we would manage it as a not to exceed construction cost on the overall project with a contingency. And then also on my specific cost for my staffing cost, those would also be managed as a not to exceed. So by way of example, let's just say it's not going to happen, but let's just say the project took, we had a really good team in terms of how we executed on the schedule on the last project. And it really, we expect the same outcome here. But if the project ran 2 or 3 months over, I'm not entitled to 2 or 3 months of additional staffing time. So those project staffing costs that I'm billing against, I have to provide the documentation to support that we've expended the hours on the project. But if it were to run over, we wouldn't be entitled to any additional compensation. And then the bottom line would be the same. And that's exactly what we did at City Hall and the police station is we established a not to exceed amount. And then we had a project contingency for any unknowns, like when we're putting the foundations in, if we ran into bad soils or whatever we may encounter. But as long as the scope, that general scope remain the same, that's the not to exceed value. So that's a very good point.
Well, I saw in your schedule you're wanting to order the prefab part of the building May 1st, which I think is interesting because we haven't really approved color, look, whatever. There are multiple things that go into ordering. So is this, you're just obtaining bids on things? Is that what we're doing right now on May 1st?
So we're obtaining bids, and then what we would do, Brett, if you go back to that schedule, is first we would just provide a notice of award to the apparent low bidder. Once council approves the apparent low bidder, they have probably 3 to 4 weeks of engineering before they could start fabricating that building anyway. And they need to provide that engineering to SIDOC for them to complete the building design anyway. And so what we would do is we would start that procurement process and start those submittals and shop drawings. So we would be another month behind that before we actually started factory fabrication of the building. And so if you look at those time frames, that 14-week time frame where it says pre-engineered building, bid and award, and then engineering shop drawings, and then fabrication and delivery,
Mhm.
Those are the pieces of that schedule for that pre-engineered shop.
I lost my train of thought. So as far as the procurement for this, I mean, this is a very large piece of the project. So are you just seeking bids from people that you know, and we're going to do a 3-bid process, just gathering 3 different bids, or how exactly are you planning on seeking these bids?
So
We're not going to do an RFP, right? This would take too long.
Right. So on everything else, we're going through the formal advertising process, and we're also sending out invitations to bid, just like we did for City Hall and the police station. On the pre-engineered building component, because it's kind of mission critical to the schedule, we went through a pre-qualification process to just identify from a list of bidders the trades that had the labor and capability of meeting the schedule, and we'll be bringing you 3 bids for the pre-engineered metal building based on that. For the balance of the bid packages, it's going to be advertised, and we could have, as you may remember, on City Hall, on some of the categories we might have had 9 bids or 6 bids, but we didn't necessarily always go with the low bidder. It depended on the bidder's capability as well. On this one piece of the project, we've pre-identified companies that have the capability of doing the project.
Okay. I don't know if Harry's still on. Through the chair, and maybe through Mark, could you, from my understanding, the building was reduced in size from its initial thought. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And could you explain the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think we were, the initial design that we had was more of a long rectangle in the about 100-foot wide by 50 foot. That was by 500 foot, so 50,000 square foot building. We now went back into a more of a condensed rectangle, and that is what you're seeing now, where I believe that span is 120 feet. I don't know what the length is though, but total, I think in there we're roughly 47.5 is there. So we're a little bit smaller than we were, but more condensed and more functional and more efficient. I know the space that came across a little bit smaller than I was, I'll be honest, a little bit surprised was the garage. But when Tom went in and looked at the garage they have now, they'll actually have more square footage of usable square footage. You know, the building over there may have been 11,000 square foot, but they didn't have 11,000 square foot of usable space. So now they will have free clear space in this new facility. Adjacent to that, we've also added in, I think included that square footage, is the drive-through wash bay. We think that that's an important aspect. I know Councilman Lally has made sure that we were very well aware that's an important aspect as well. And I think if you're going to, put the money into the equipment we've got, we need to make sure we're maintaining it on a regular basis, and washing is part of it. Make sure you get the salt off, make sure you get the mud off. And I think that'll be an addition that people will use because of the fact it is enclosed. It's not just pulling out the pressure washer and going to town. So more of a condensed location.
Brett, can you blow that up a little bit? Can you blow the image up a little bit so everybody can see the text?
And if I may, I mean, the design changed because not only were we trying to save some dollars, obviously, but it evolved after we started going and looking at different facilities. We did the space planning study, and then we looked at other facilities and asked them, what do you like about this? What don't you like about this? So the thought process involved in this building, I mean, we've tried to think of everything to get the perfect design for what we need.
And so how many extra vehicles can we put in it? Approximately.
Yeah, I think roughly 7 or 8, I believe, Pam.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Oh, I did have one more question through the chair, and it kind of relates to the mezzanine. I understand that it's concrete. Is there a cost savings if we went to, let's say, an open grid? Just from a cost saving perspective. But I guess that's in the future. I'm sorry, wrong time to ask.
No, that's it. That's the right time to add, because that is part of that structural package that's on the design table right now. So if we were to change the mezzanine design, you know, from a metal deck and concrete mezzanine to just, you know, an open grid, yeah, there's ways that you could incorporate some savings. You know, can you blow that up, Brett? There's ways that you could incorporate savings in that mezzanine design, and we've actually spent a fair amount of time value engineering the project as well, looking at different cost saving options and studying those. So the finished product that SIDOC is at right now was basically the work product of the different value engineering.
Okay.
Good.
If you see the area where it says I know the print is hard to read, but there's multiple labels where it says mezzanine above. So that mezzanine above and just below that, those two areas represent the mezzanine above the tool crib and above the office.
I mean, I'd rather have a solid floor, but I do know open grates have been used in buildings like this before. So,
How about the cost factor about that?
Yeah, I mean, like in those areas, like the tool crib, for example, or the area over the cold patch back there, yeah, that would, you know, that would result in a cost savings. It wouldn't be a significant savings, but we could study that. I mean, we could even price it as a bid alternate.
well, yeah, I was.
Could I ask, because you brought up an interesting point, Pam. You said you would prefer the concrete over the open grid. What's the pros and cons? Because
Well,
you've seen them both.
Stuff falling through. I mean,
Right.
you have an open grid, so you know you have that one screw that you put something up top, and all of a sudden, down it goes, and then you have trouble finding it, or you know. But it is also, I don't know, it might be a little lighter in weight, but we have some pretty lightweight concretes now. So I would say mainly it was cost, and for the good part, and for the negative part, I would say that it was the fact that it was open and things could fall through, and it doesn't feel so good on the feet.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Yes.
So the mezzanine over the office area, you don't want to go with open grate because below it is offices.
True.
Second is we need to have stuff on rollers because some stuff that's going to be put up there is going to be on a high-low and put on rollers because it's heavy.
Gotta be
For
concrete.
storage, you don't want to have an open grate system trying to roll something across.
True.
Whereas I could understand over the tool crib, and actually on this print, it doesn't show it. There is one also in the mechanics garage between the oil storage and the rec and office. There is one up there too for them to store large tires with rims, like loader tires and backhoe tires up there, so it's out of the way. Just to make you aware, that's been updated there.
Okay, thank you. I didn't, you know, it helps when you know what the design criteria is. And
Yes.
so I've not been privy to all of that, so hence the question.
And the other thing to add to Tom's comment is the loading of the mezzanine as well, and just making sure that it's loaded in terms of, you know, the structural loading, so that there's not a lot of limitations on what we can do with it.
Well, through the chair again, my other question is that we've been talking a lot about the building, and we really haven't talked like the actual building, like the facade, the brick veneers, is there have we gone with the nice but not the cheapest but not the most expensive exterior?
That That was one of the pages in here,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I think we gave that to council before, didn't we? With
Yeah.
all the-
Yeah, I
Right,
ran
right?
across.
There's a SIDOC picture in the package, I believe.
That's not, a picture isn't the same as
Well,
an actual list of the material you've selected.
my apologies.
That's okay.
So with regard to that, we spent a lot of time in the value engineering stage. Brett, can you blow that up a little bit? We spent a lot of time talking about this. I'll point out the really high points of that conversation. The first is, if you look at the shop in the overhead doors, you'll see that we have the masonry wainscot that goes up, that 8 foot of masonry wainscot. That definitely adds cost. It's pretty typical on projects in terms of durability, and the intent in putting that masonry wainscot in, even though it does add very significant cost, is that the metal siding doesn't get continuously damaged over time from truck traffic or high-low traffic or whatever equipment is working in direct proximity to that. So, and that was in the warehouse. I would say that's the major upgrade. Also, there are some elements like the roofing system on the metal building, where we're using like a standing seam roof instead of like a screw down fasteners and things like that. You know, all of that again would relate to long-term maintenance, so that you're not continuously year over year having to deal with maintenance issues on the building. With respect to the office itself, in the 2 or 3 years that we've been working on the project, this project actually started out as kind of this, again, a kind of a simple rectangle with the office inside the simple rectangle. And it evolved to this, what I would call the office box, conventional box on the front of the pre-engineered metal building. And the rationale behind that was, again, to give the building permanency, and also from a long-term durability, functionality, all those different things. You'll see that front rectangle that actually kind of penetrates and attaches to the shop space. That's where we really wrestled with cost. Do we just drop, block partitions inside the building, drywall partitions inside the building, or do we build this as kind of a standalone office building attached to the front of the building? Certainly from Tom's point of view, this is your long range solution that is, again, gives it what I call this kind of 25, 50-year solution. So you're not having to continually update and modify the building. I mean, you're going to have flexibility with those interior partitions, but the building box itself, that's that conventional piece that we're talking about. With respect to the walls and the building materials, when we were building these buildings, say 15 or 20 or 30 years ago, we would typically just have a single wide block wall painted. That was kind of the standard. We can't do that anymore and comply with the energy code. The energy code has changed 2 or 3 times. It's actually changed twice in the last 11 years maybe. And because of that, what we do in terms of the wall thickness and insulation and how it's constructed, and the same with the roof. The roof, we used to put, there was 1 inch of insulation, then there was 2 inches of insulation. Now you're looking at 4+ inches of rigid insulation. The entire envelope of that building has to be built to comply with the energy code. And in doing so, that adds a certain amount of cost, but a certain amount of cost that's kind of unavoidable, really. Same with the mechanical and the electrical system. So we get this question a lot from municipal clients or industrial clients that'll say, hey, you built a building for us in 1995, and it was $45 a foot, and now you're telling me you're at $90 a foot or $100 how can that happen in such a short period of time? And everybody says it, that is it the trade pricing, and it's really not. That's kind of a misunderstood thing. The trade pricing is a big problem right now, for sure. I mean, and I think Mark pointed that out at the beginning of this. there's just a total and complete lack of availability of trades. There's a big article in Cranes talking about that. But setting that aside, the other contributing factor is the code. It's been the updates to the building code and the energy code. So what we're building right now is really a totally different building than what we would have built for you 20 years ago.
I'm going to jump in real fast. Since everybody's sitting down, you may find this hard to believe, but we actually talked about the lowering that concrete wall down to 4 foot. And the architect has concern of how you would interact the doors into the metal building, the door jambs and so forth. And it was actually Mr. Cady who suggested we do not look at that as a cost savings, but we do that as a continue on as planned at 8 foot, and we'll find cost savings elsewhere, but not on that item. So we were rather shocked ourselves.
It was a weak moment.
What's a weak moment?
But it kind of just, we've gone back and forth and challenged to see how we can find those, if there's cost savings there. And some of them, some things, I'm looking at the building we're in now, we had some changes that you guys would have never, if we added them, they were fine. If we took them away, they didn't matter. In this case, it would be a tie-in issue. It just didn't make any sense at this point in time. There's other areas we can look at to cost save or to delay those costs into a future year.
Are you worried about the building coming in on time? If you ordered it May 1st because of just delivery and the COVID situation, are you worried that it?
Yeah, that's a really big issue right now. I mean, we're out ahead of it, and we've been talking not just to the supply, not just to the installers, but the actual manufacturers. But that's a major problem in the industry right now, is these kind of COVID shutdowns and what it's done. I mean, prior to the whole COVID shutdown, you had one of the largest backlogs of work that we've seen, in our generation, and then it all got shut down for 2 months. So you have this cascading effect. It's manageable. We're managing it on other projects, but it's been challenging, to say the least. So that's kind of the reason that part of the selection process isn't just, who's the low bidder. It's also who has the capability of delivering this. And that'll be, when you see our analysis, our spreadsheet and so forth, that'll be part of the decision-making process. But really all three of the firms that have been selected have the capability of meeting the schedule, but that issue you're bringing up is an important issue. It's a challenge.
Joe, if I may, through the chair, if
Yes.
I may. Joe, so this is for the count, a little bit for you, a question for you, but the council comment first. Obviously, we have two hurdles we need to get to accomplish tonight. If the councils will be asking those questions, and that would be to notice of proceed for GV Cement, and then the contract for Joe at JS Vig. Well, and Joe, you're talking about the building, the possibility of that being available for Tuesday's council meeting. Is that possible? Because I think that's the timeline you would like to hit. If not, we'd have to come back in either a special meeting or the June 9th meeting.
No, our intent is to get you those bids by the end of this week.
Okay.
So, hey, Brett, can you come off of mute and tell us where we're at with that? Are all three of those firms delivering their bids as committed by the end of the week?
Yes, we have 2 bids in already. I'm waiting on the final bid, and then qualifications are being made tomorrow and Friday for submittal by the end of the week.
Okay.
All right. So what I'll do, if I'll work with the mayor on this and Mike Mizzi to put a space holder on the agenda for Tuesday, and then we'll get that information over to council ASAP on Friday. I may not be here Friday for vacation day, but I will. We'll make arrangements to get all that taken care of and get that distributed to council, so you have the weekend to look everything over. What we get from Joe and from Brett on Friday afternoon.
If you want, Mark, have Joe send it to me or Dave, and one of us will get it out.
Yeah, I think most of the part, Joe, you've usually sent it to all of us anyways.
Right. Yeah, I'll get it out to all you guys.
Okay, so what's, does anybody else have a question before we start to move on some of these items? Okay, Mark, how do you want to proceed then? We want to talk about the GV cement
Yeah,
first?
Yeah, we'll take the GV cement one first. I guess it doesn't matter. Let's just get GV out of the way. So the GV cement would be to provide a notice to proceed so Vince can get started on the work with this project. So the recommendation of the administrative staff to provide GV cement contracting company with a notice to proceed for the civil work, which would include the roadway, storm sewers, water main, retention basin. Did I say retention?
Detention.
Detention basin.
It's like high school detention.
I know. I should know that. I found my way there a couple times.
With you, it was suspension.
Yeah, well, it's not a suspension basin. And a detention basin for the new DPS facility project. And as I go back through this, I mentioned in the memo, GV, we extended the prices for GV on the that he provided in his 2019 bid. I think it was October 8th is when we extended those to cover the 2020 construction season. So that's actually what he's working on. He's working on that contract again for Park Avenue, and he'll be doing that for Meyer and potentially for Robinson. The good thing on that is that some of the components that were in his bid, because he did bid he was awarded the water main for McLean Street. So that already included a lot of the stuff that we were looking for in this DPS project. So it really worked out well. And I know Sohail and Joe have both looked at his prices and made sure that they are still competitive in what they're seeing in the market as well. And I believe that is still the case.
Okay, I do have a question though. There's no, and I'm sure this is a question on a lot of people's mind. Do we have a rough figure of what it's going to cost from GV cement?
Brett, go back to that spreadsheet.
$246 is on the spreadsheet. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 2.197.
And there's a couple of components in that column. So if he scrolls down, go to the bottom of the site budget, Brett. So that 2.4 that has the contingency, which of course wouldn't be in his contract. And if you scroll up that, you'll see that there's a number of site items that would not be in the GV contract, like the landscaping and the site lighting and so forth. But Brett, if you total up the pieces, just if you could do that quickly, total up the pieces that would fall within his contract and give us that total. 1.347, Brett? 1.391, 460.
Correct.
So those numbers, as of the latest, keeping in mind that Sohail's drawing is not 100% complete, but as of the latest drawing that we have, getting GV's pricing as well as doing our own quantity takeoffs, that's where we're at with that, based on that latest updated drawing.
So we're talking about 1.4 million?
At this point, yeah.
Should we I'm going to ask Joe Cuvier maybe or Sohail, we're having a little side conversation here, is that should we put it under contract pricing that we have already have pricing for under those quantity prices?
What?
Joe. Yeah. I understand the question mark is, could we put these prices based on his current unit prices work that he's doing for the city?
Correct.
Yes, that would be pretty much his next, that would be pretty much the extension of his current prices for other water main projects and other concrete work that he's doing for the city. Be based on the same unit prices.
Okay, I think we're gonna need something a little more specific in the motion with regard to the pricing. I know we have to get started on this, but that 1.4 million is a rounding up. Of the spreadsheet of figure.
Do the work to Vig, and that number's already in there. Yes.
I think the problem is it includes more work that's necessary. That's what Joe's saying. Because he's not going to be doing the landscaping, the fencing, all that. That's going to be
Just do this. This number figure itself out. There's a total number. This number figure itself out.
Could you go at the award based on unit pricing? No, that is not.
All the site work not to approve that number, not to exceed that number. Right. Just a portion.
That'd probably be using Joe's number.
Yeah.
All right, Mayor, we're apologize for our debating here. We just want to make sure we're all comfortable with what we want to present to you as well. The conversation now is to maybe utilize the number that Joe Vig has on his sheet here. If you scroll down, Brett, if you could go to the bottom line here, and maybe an award to GV Cement based on his unit pricing for an amount not to exceed, and utilize that $2.4 million number.
But would that be accurate? Because from what Joe said, that bottom line number does not.
Back out.
Well, if it's not to exceed number, and it will still has to go by unit pricing, so I would think we'd be covered.
Go Vig or Brett, how much are you talking on the other ones? If we pull those numbers out, is that another, is it 100,000?
No, no, he's at 1.4. So Brett, the number that you just had totaled in there was out of the 2.4 based on the latest updates. Vince's piece of it was 1.4. Can you Brett, retotal that? So this include, just to walk you through what he's totaling right now, it's the building pad, it's all the public utilities, not the franchised utilities, but the public utilities. It would be the concrete paving. It would not. Now, Mark, Brett's not adding in the asphalt paving to that. So if the asphalt paving is going into the GV contract, we need to add that in. But what he's totaling right now is earthwork, concrete, and so building pad, all the site preparation, all the public utilities, and the concrete work. And that gets us to the 1,391,460. Now, if we add in the asphalt to that, then that takes us to Brett. Add the asphalt into that as well, please. That takes us to 1,792,000, and that still wouldn't include the site lighting, the landscaping, the fencing, and, you know, any of the other
Salt dome too.
soft costs, salt dome.
And keep in mind, this is only exterior concrete. This is no foundations and no interior slab on grade.
Which he may end up doing that, right? I mean, we're bidding that out, but GV could end up doing that piece as well.
Correct.
But right now, we have to approve work that GV Cement is going to, we know it's actually going to be assigned. So now we have the question, are they or are they not going to do the asphalt paving, or are we going to have someone else come in and do that?
I would bid that out.
Okay, so we could leave the asphalt paving out of this?
They don't have a current contract with us for major asphalt paving.
Okay, all right. And so then we're back to the 1,391,460.
Yeah, I think we should go with award based on unit pricing with an amount not to exceed at this point 1.4 million.
If we have to come back.
And we'll come back as we see fit at that point.
Okay. All right, so do you want to make a statement so that Mike can make sure we're accurate on this?
Yeah, it's the recommendation of the administrative staff. We won't change anything on that. The city provide GV Cement Contracting Company with a notice to proceed for the civil work, roadway, storm sewers, water main, retention basin, etc., for the new DPS facility project based on unit pricing with an amount not to exceed $1.4 million.
And we need to change retention basin to detention basin?
Detention, I apologize.
I'm glad that got clarified because I always thought when I heard that it was wrong. So now I know the difference. All right. Can we take down the shared screen? Thank you. All right, I have a motion on the for the recommendation that has been made. Unmute yourself, and I think it was Dan.
Motion.
You're mute. Motion Lloyd. Can I have a second?
Valerius, second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Valerius.
Valerius, thank you. I didn't see you. All right, we have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
No, I'm sorry,
call.
it's roll call. My
Okay.
other meeting, they do it yes or no.
All right. For the resolution presented, we'll start with Blevins.
Can you repeat the motion?
You know what? I don't have it in front of me. Mark, could you do it?
I'm sorry, Mike.
I'll do it. It is the recommendation of the administrative staff that the city provide GV Cement Contracting Company with a notice to proceed for the civil work that is roadway, storm sewers, water main, detention basin, etc., for the new DPS facility project based on unit pricing not to exceed $1.4 million.
Thank you. Yes.
Pro Tem Lally.
Yes.
Councilman Lloyd.
Yes.
Mayor McLeod.
Yes.
Councilman Schlack.
Yes.
Councilman Syke.
Yes.
And Councilman Valerius.
Yes.
The yeses have it. The motion is adopted. Next item, Mayor.
The next item is the construction manager. And I would view the motion as the administrative staff requires authorization for the city of Allen Park to enter into a professional service agreement after city attorney review with JS Big for the construction management of the DPS facility project.
I'll
I have a
make the
motion.
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Mr. Lally, thank
Second,
you.
Schlack.
Second by Schlack.
Wait, can we I have a question first.
Yeah, that comes after the, I have it all written down here. Hold on. Okay, do we have any questions?
Didn't we say a not to exceed on the other contract? So do we need to say that also in the motion? Or did I like?
Oh,
skip out there?
as far as their, even though it's on their fee schedule, I suppose we could put that in.
It's percentage of the.
That was not to exceed $170,000. Is that correct, Mr. Big?
That's, Brett, can you, well, we're not sharing the screen anymore. Yeah, that's correct.
I have the document. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
I'm reading from the
you're
right.
referencing that document. That's correct.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's on the staffing cost.
Right. And that's what this authorization is for the staffing. Is that correct?
It's the staffing cost and the construction fee. But we'll bring that in the entire not to exceed back to council before it's fully approved.
No, okay, so I want to be clearer. I think we need to be clear on what we're approving tonight. This is to authorize the city to enter into professional service agreement with JS Big for construction management. Is that then not to exceed this 170,000 I'm looking at, or is there another component?
It's that component plus the 4.5% fee.
Okay.
What?
On the document that's in your fee proposal, on, I believe it's page 21. It indicates a total construction staffing amount of 170,000 and construction management fee of 4.5%.
Correct, not to exceed the 4.5%, the 170, whatever.
Correct.
So I guess I'm looking for that number, not the 4.5%, because that's not a not to exceed. That could, if you just say 4.5%, it could 4.5% of everything that's presented.
That's whatever we say it's
And you could even establish the not to exceed on the entire project cost if you want it as well.
Okay, so what would,
Someone doing the math?
so we have the staffing component of 170,000. What we need is the 4.5% construction management fee.
Brett, do you have that right in front of you? Can you add those together?
676. That's what I got. At those numbers.
Yeah, and that's based on those numbers. So remember, this still has to be bid. It's percentage of the.
Right.
So that's even a better deal for the city if we say it not to exceed 676.
Yeah, you can establish that or the total amount. We're comfortable however you want to frame it.
Okay, well, I think we need a number for this motion before we proceed. And I just want to make clear, if we're going to separate out we can state it as not to exceed 170,000 for staffing and not to exceed X amount for the construction management fee.
And that's 4.5%. That's what they've listed down here.
Right, but we're looking for we're looking for a number.
But you're basing that on an estimate. I don't know how you can lock him into an estimate on a 4.5% of an estimated number.
So, Mark, if I could make a suggestion, Brett, can you unmute? And maybe if we make it a not to exceed the 170,000 of staffing cost and 4.5% based on a not to exceed total project cost of rather than kind of pinning that dollar amount down, because hopefully it would be less.
True.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, and so it's 4.5% based on a total project cost of, and Brett, what's that amount in the latest estimate?
The total budget,
Yeah, total budget.
7521802.
Repeat that back.
7521802.
It's within the bounds.
$170,000 staffing costs and 4.5%, and not to exceed 4.5% of
That number.
project cost of $7,521,802.
Yes.
Does that sound right, Joe, as far as the wording?
Yeah, that's fine, but yeah, what is that number? What is 4.5?
And Brett, can you provide that amount? Because you're not applying, Brett, the 4.5 to the total value. You're applying it to the subtotal. So what we get? Just give them the lump sum on the 4.5. It's gonna be less than this, but that's the not to exceed amount.
The 4.5% of the subtotal is 309,115.
309,115.
Correct.
So we would say not to exceed $170,000 staffing cost and 309,115,000 construction management fee.
Based on 4.5% of the cost.
Yeah, based on 4.5%. I agree with that. That makes sense, Joe.
Okay, based on 4.5% of project cost of $7,521,000. Mike, have you got all of that?
Not really, but I'll get it from Mark. I always converse with Mark before I put a resolution together so.
Okay, I think basically what it says, for the construction management of the DPS facility project, not to exceed $170,000 staffing cost and $309,115 construction fees based on 4.5% of project cost of $7,521,802.
Okay.
Mayor, before you
Yes.
vote on that, I just want one point of clarification. Dave Boomer, can you chime in on this? So the one thing I think we should talk about in the context of that total budget is we went back and forth on whether the whole road system was going to be heavy duty asphalt or concrete. And in the current design from SOUTHFIELD, in the current latest updated budget, we've got the heavy duty asphalt, not the concrete paving. I just want to make sure that that's what, Tom, yourself, that's what everybody wants.
No, it's not, I don't think.
I don't think so. My recommendation would be for the concrete. I think that the long-term longevity of the concrete is much greater than the asphalt. The maintenance of it would be a lot less. Concrete also has its own maintenance aspect as well. I think if we're looking to cut cost, it'd be easier on the concrete, because if we get a pad that needs to be 100 foot wide from the building and we go 50 feet, now we go 25 the next year and 25 the next year, we can do those in pieces, kind of back that down. I would recommend concrete from my perspective.
So Brett Levko, just for the benefit of everybody, because this is an important cost discussion. If we change the design and go to an all concrete road system instead of heavy duty asphalt, what does that change the total project not to exceed to as of this point in time with Ohio's design.
90, what's that?
Right, am I showing an extra 290 on that?
That's correct. The additional cost for concrete in lieu of heavy duty asphalt is 290,000.
Well, through the chair,
Yes.
that's why is there any way just, because when you put amounts, we've actually had to come back and re-vote on something because we said not to exceed. Is there any way to take and just say 4.5% of total project costs? I mean, you have attorneys and finance director. It sounds like this may.
Well, I mean, we've got a cost right now of $7,521,802, and you're saying that going to concrete is going to be an additional 290,000 over that, or would you back out the asphalt and substitute the concrete? That's.
No, it would be, the concrete would be above and beyond that amount if we do an all concrete road system.
She needs a not to exceed number. It should be $300,000 higher. Doesn't mean you have to spend it. Yeah. But it should be $300,000 higher from it.
So was it on the 7.5 or on the 6.8?
More project cost. But you're right.
The motion should be 4.5% of total project cost.
Right.
That.
Okay, but we're trying to get. I mean,
well, I think that
we're trying to be cautious here because of the fact that we can sit here and I know what we're looking at. I know what we've dealt with, and I know that there's a trust factor. But you want to have documentation that supports what you're doing.
Right. I don't disagree.
Somebody's going to come after 5 or 10 years later and may raise a question and not understand the trust factor.
Yeah, I understand that, but the problem that you have here is that the bid, he's basing this number is based on an estimate. This is not factual bid numbers. If these were bid numbers, I'd feel very comfortable saying it's 4.5% of an X number. But we're on the if come. This could be a little bit lower, it could be a little bit higher, depending on where you're going. I think if Joe had wants to give us maybe a set amount, but my guess is it may be higher than that 309, which is still an estimated number. That's the concern I have. I'm not too sure how you balance that out and be fair to both sides.
But Mark, I'm okay. I'm okay with however you want to approach it, because if we establish that not to, I just want to make sure that everybody's well informed, so we don't box ourselves in and put Tom in a situation where.
Let me tell you, I took that 7 million that you provided, and I just added 290, and if you want to bump that up to 295, and I came up with a number, and 4.5% of that's $351,531. If you want to take that 290, I mean, if you're sure that the concrete's only going to cost 290,000 more, but at least we've got a number that we can work with. If you want to.
You added that to the 290 to the 7,521, 802?
802, yep.
Okay. So for a new number of 7,811, 802?
7,811, 802, correct.
With the understanding that we're bidding a concrete road? Or are we going to do?
Yeah.
Are we going to do
And
bid
we're going to be coming back to you numerous times. This is just to get us off the ball here.
Right. They're going to come back with the bids. I think Joel mentioned there's going to be 3 or 4 times they're going to come back with bid packages.
And we could even come back with both the concrete and the asphalt, as options.
Yeah, I think that might be the best option. Then we can kind of see where we're at. It may be more than that. It may be less than that. So I'd rather have both options available, but with, I think, the preference being concrete.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. So we could do the motion, the 170,000 staffing costs not to exceed. We can change the construction fee amount to, why don't we just round it, 352,000? Is that
It's a
amenable?
question mark.
351,531.
Sold.
Okay, Dan.
That's a question mark.
Based on the project cost
Yes,
of
it's a
the new figure I came up with, which was 78,11,802.
You might want to put estimate on that number,
Yeah.
Right,
the word
Can I-
estimate.
with the estimated,
Good point.
not to exceed, estimated project cost
Yeah. The question mark.
of 78,11,802. Well, that will be
There's a
351.
contingency at the end.
It's,
I just don't, since it's all a question mark anyway, I don't know what we're accomplishing by putting that into the motion. Because it's I mean it's fine. We could put, you know, an arbitrary number. I mean, it's not arbitrary. It's based off of this, but it's at this phase in the project, all of this is indefinite. And what we're agreeing to with JS Big is that they're going to get 4.5% of the total cost. And we don't know what that is because these are all estimates. So I understand like the being precautious. I do, but
Wait,
I'm sorry.
okay,
I'm sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
hold on. Dan, want to finish?
I just I guess and I'm fine voting on a motion with that concrete number, but if we're putting question marks next to numbers, then what is ultimately achieved? If the number's not known at any way, it doesn't seem to make sense. Then
Well,
I'm done. I yield.
I would think, my feeling is that I think that this is probably a good starting point, Dan, and based on Big's experience, I think that their estimates are probably going to be pretty close. And we'll find out where we're at during the bidding process, and if need be, then we can amend, but at least we've got a starting point. Pam?
Oh, I was gonna say, usually when you do an estimate, you don't try and estimate real low. You estimate
Aye.
with they've come to us with a really good estimate. I mean, they're very in touch with what's going on. There's also a 5% contingency at the end.
Right.
The reason why you do a not to exceed is that things happen, and they may have to come back to us if it does exceed that. But it gives us, the council, the right to negotiate more with them on the extra charges, if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, I think that,
4.5%, you just keep going on and on and on and on. And there's no stopping point. There should be a stopping point.
yeah, I
For
think
their
that
services,
there's
not
a,
talking about the building.
I'm sorry, Pam, you were chopping on, I thought you were done.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I think there's they're comfortable with this, and I think that we can go ahead with these figures.
I'm comfortable with it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we had a motion by Lally, seconded by Schlack. Schlack. Not to exceed 170,000 staffing cost and 351,531 construction fees based on 4.5% of estimated project cost of $811,802. May take a roll call vote.
all right, shall this resolution pass? Pro Tem Lally,
Yes.
Councilman Lloyd,
Yes.
Mayor McLeod,
Yes.
Councilman Schlack,
Yes.
Councilwoman Syke,
Yes.
Councilman Valerius,
Yes.
and Councilman Blevins.
No.
The yeses have it. And I will get the, all those numbers from Mark or you tomorrow morning.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to vote on?
That's everything I have. I think we'll have the information again. We'll be looking forward from that information from Joe and Brett on Friday for the building. We have that available. We'll have a vote on that on Tuesday and continue to move forward.
Yeah, Mark, we'll have all that for you this week.
Okay.
Okay. Now that I've lost my agenda somewhere in this pile of paper, move on to the next item, which is council comments, unless anybody else has anything to bring. Okay, so tonight we'll start with, and it is the 20th, which is a Wednesday, not the 19th. Matthew.
Just real short and sweet. We've been at this for a while now. So, yeah, exactly, Jeff. I appreciate JSVIG for joining us, all the department heads for joining us, Ohio for joining us to discuss, a matter pretty important to our city. It's a big project, expensive project, but a needed project that I think for the long term is going to benefit the city of Allen Park and the citizens of Allen Park, and just everything to do with the city. It's not easy to make decisions like this, of course, in the present day situation, but I think this is something that the city's needed for quite some time. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on an infected wound, that just it doesn't heal, and it's time to do something. We've got so much money invested in equipment and stuff, and it's just something that I think needs to be done. I don't know how prolonging it and keep postponing it benefits anything to do with the city and the residents. Like I said, it's definitely not easy decisions. It's ones that we've discussed in detail and looked over and contemplated, I thank everyone involved in the process, and my fellow councilmen and women, for engaging in the conversation and and moving forward with this project. I know we're meeting again next week on Tuesday, so I'll save the majority of comments for that meeting. I just hope everyone continues to try to remain positive in light of our current situation. I know all of us are looking to May 28th to see what announcements might be made regarding, the executive orders and everything else. I know some things have changed, but something I'm sure we're hoping for and looking forward to, without rushing into things, and also protecting the safety and well-being of everyone involved. I'll just end with another little poem. I didn't write this, I found it, but just once again, just kind of poem just for hope and perseverance and faith, and it's just real short. Believe in yourself, you can do it. You can and you will get through this. Search within yourself and you will find strength and hope for tomorrow. So I bless everyone, and have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I want to thank the administration for the hard work they put in this project, and I want to say it's great to meet you, Joe and Brett, via virtually. And I know we're going to have a lot of work going forward on this project. And I want to say to the citizens that I do have confidence that this is the right move, that we're going in the right direction. We are protecting over $1 million in equipment will be protected by this project. We're not just protecting simple machinery, we're protecting high sophisticated machines, not just a simple farm tractor. It's definitely necessary to build this. The salt dome for future weather, we never know what, especially Michigan weather, is going to bring. You got to see this as an investment in our community. It's not just money that we're throwing away, that we are definitely have did a lot of research and a lot of proposals thrown our way. So finally, I want to say that I know we're meeting Tuesday for our normally scheduled meeting, but before then is Memorial Day. And as a veteran, it's important to me, but I'm sure it's important to many of our citizens out there that to give when not only when you're celebrating, not celebrating, but with your family over a barbecue pit, but also remember to think and give thanks for those veterans and those men and women that gave the ultimate sacrifices to make sure that our freedom is protected. So with that, stay safe, keep patient with this situation that we are in now and continue to be in. That it will be over, we will overcome, and God bless, good night, and see you Tuesday. Thank you.
Charles?
First off, I'll make sure not to sing like Elvis, but I just, first off, I want to say good job to our Parks and Rec, because I go for my walks and I went by some parks and they keep keeping them up to date and cutting the grass, and so they're doing a great job. Secondly, to question in the past during this meeting, have you gone to the DPS building? Yes, I have. Thank you to Tom for giving me a tour a couple months ago. And to me, been going to council meetings, it does remind me of the old city hall, the first temporary city hall, the church and all that stuff. And we do need an upgrade. And I truly hope that this can get accomplished in a proper way, and so that we don't have to keep on going back and forth for a new roof or something like that, and we keep managing these buildings that we keep upgrading. And lastly, like Gary said, I hope everyone has a safe Memorial Day. God bless. Stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I want to thank Joe Viggs for being here tonight, and you did a heck of a good explanation. I know a little bit of construction, and I'm pretty sure I've seen your buildings. You do an excellent job, and everywhere. As far as the DPS, yeah, we should have got that done a long time ago. It's terrible the way the DPS department with those equipment, like I said before, is just no good. So the further that we got to do as soon as possible, and get this done, because if we don't get it done, we don't protect our equipment and our men that work there. So I want to thank everyone. Nice poem there, Matthew. You're a good man. And God bless. Be safe, and wash your hands. Use sanitizer. And this will go through. Have a good night. I'll talk about Veterans Day next week on Tuesday.
Memorial Day.
Thank you.
Memorial Day. Dan?
All right. Well, first off, I want to assure you that I'll get our latest resolution over to the high school math department, and maybe they can fit it in as a story problem somewhere. Practical math. It's real life. And I appreciate that. I appreciate there's smart people than me crunching numbers. So thank you. I do want to send a thank you to Harry Sisko. It was really good to hear his voice. I've in the meetings that I attended before I was elected, and even before that, I developed a great respect for Councilman Sisko. I know that was a respect that my dad had for him, my father. He was, and I just want to assure Councilman Sisko that the concerns that he brought up in the last month or 2 months, I have heard those same concerns brought up by my colleagues. And these are things that I want to make sure that he knows that these are not things that we're overlooking or taking lightly. These are things that we have talked about at great length. That we've had this conversation with Mr. Cady, not only in relationship to this DPW building, but also we have our budget coming up as well. And I have a great deal of confidence in Mr. Cady and Mr. Kibbe and Ms. Wirtz as well, because I truly think that they've done a miraculous job in the last 10 or 15 years with the city of Allen Park and their finances. And not to say that we're just taking them for their word, but I think that they are really thinking hard about the long-term financial success for the city, and we're not making decisions based off of nothing. These are not these are very hard thought out decisions. So, but I did want to very much thank him for his comments. They are appreciated. He has a great deal of wealth, and I know a great deal of passion for the city. So, thank you to Mr. Cisco.
And Pam.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel very, very good about our meeting. I think that meetings need to take the length of time that they need to take to fully discuss the issues and to make sure that people have a clear understanding, not only us, but also our people that listen to us and our citizens need to know that we are asking good questions, and sometimes that takes a long time, sometimes it doesn't. And I appreciate all of us sitting through here, because I doubt very seriously anybody has quite the heat that I'm having right now. Upstairs is very warm, and my current meeting space. So couldn't open the window. We had a birthday party next door with a lot of honking. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the new building and to putting let's see, how can I put this? Putting to right what should have been done in my opinion, done quite a long time ago. And let's get all our facilities in one, give them a good working environment, because a good working environment makes for better employees. And that's what we want. And we have wonderful employees, don't get me wrong, but to have a nice workspace to go to really improves morale. And so with that, I want to say, all of you have a safe weekend. It's supposed to be pretty warm, and I know we'll want to do the things that we normally do on Memorial Day. And may God bless you and keep you all safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Mike, did you want to say anything? Mike?
I think he left.
No. Support Allen Park businesses, and thank you all for coming out. God bless you. Good night.
Thank you. Well, I will make this brief. I was just sitting here once again thinking that this year feels like the year that doesn't exist. It hasn't happened. Nothing's happened. Easter didn't happen. Mother's Day didn't happen. And Memorial Day. They're on the calendar, and we mark them on the calendar, but we are not able to mark them in the normal fashion. It's as if they didn't happen. I keep waiting for them to happen. It can't already be May. And I was going through some material because last Memorial Day, I spoke at the ceremony at the old Veterans Administration Hospital site. And I didn't go into a lot of length, and I'm not going to now. I was just looking at some of the notes from there, but Memorial Day is when we remember those who died while protecting our rights and our country. Or sometimes if you look at the Civil War and protecting the rights of others within our own country. And the only comment I made at the end of that speech last year was the fact that while we need to remember those who died for us, we also need to hold dear, even now, in our hearts, the people that were left behind, the ones who suffered the loss of family members, the ones who lost children or spouses or parents. Let's remember that. Keep each other safe. Think of one another. Pray for one another. And with that, have a safe weekend and take care of yourselves. Now I have a motion to adjourn.
Charles, I think, and then supported by Valerius.
Oh. I didn't hear. Did you see lips moving?
I saw hands.
Oh, okay, well, I wasn't on it.
Sorry,
Okay.
I got
So
muted.
Charles,
Yeah.
supported by Valerius.
Correct.
Okay, do we have to take roll call for this, Mike, or can we just?
Yes, yes, I've got a motion by Blevins, supported by Valerius to adjourn the meeting. We'll start with Councilman Lloyd,
Yes.
Mayor McLeod,
Yes.
Councilman Schlack,
Yes.
Councilwoman Syke,
Yes.
Councilman Valerius, Councilman Blevins,
Yes.
and Pro Tem Lally.
No, yeah.
Put it back on mute.
All right, we are adjourning the meeting at 8:06 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you,
night.
everybody.
Bless everybody.
All right, guys. I'll see everybody Tuesday. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.